Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This poem puts me in mind of what the author said originally, that when this was written, only Brob and Grobbit breeding. Come on, music. When Grot was written, only Grobbit breeding. Music continued. When Grob and Gribbit... When God was written, only Brob and Vrit and Dritting.
For example, I don't think on a television show they could do a really horror or mystery type of thing as well.
No, because your own imagination would do it.
Because they can't create those special effects that's in the mind all the time when you hear it.
Oh, yes.
Those were great days.
I had intended to bring a little magical illusion with me, and I put it in the wrong jacket.
No magic tonight?
So no magic tonight, and I had also told myself that I would do what Mrs. Temple used to tell Shirley before every take, and I find I'm not doing it. Do you know what she used to say?
No.
This is really true. Just as they put that slate on, you know, take number 4, whatever it is, Littlest Rebel.
Orson Welles was a towering giant of cinema, but his personal storytelling was even more mesmerizing.
Live with dialogue that went like this. Ah, Pythias, you have the biggest lance in all Athens. Can you throw it over your shoulder? Let me see your discus, you know. And all perfectly clean, unbleepable stuff, but we were only about 6 minutes into it when they had to just play organ music. We were all on the floor because this spinster lady didn't know why. We thought it was all so dirty. And when we finally came to a line where I had to say, barrels and barrels of pith.
This legendary director's chaotic years behind the microphone often produced the most memorable. Legendary creator proudly confessed that his greatest cinematic triumphs were born from pure, beautiful ignorance.
He said, dear boy, if in doubt, do nothing.
Welles never hesitated to pass down incredibly simple acting advice that completely redefined younger co-stars' performances.
All we know from the Bible is that he was very old and liked to get very drunk. But no, it says he found grace in the eyes of the Lord.
Let's step inside his extraordinary universe to discover the true, rebellious genius of Orson Welles. 1. The night Orson Welles confessed his deepest on-air terrors to Johnny Carson. Orson Welles did not appear often with Johnny Carson, but this cinematic genius always made a massive impact.
I'm going to tell you something. I thought about it upstairs tonight. The very first time you were booked on this show, I was really kind of scared. I don't know whether you know that or not. I didn't tell you that because I've always been in somewhat awe of you, and I did not know you at the time.
But we'd been on the same stage together, and no harm had come to you.
That is true. That is no harm. And I was. And then you were on that show the first night, and everything just worked great, and now it's so great to have you here.
Behind his highly intimidating public persona, he carried a surprisingly nervous and sensitive heart before performances.
Aren't scared. Just now, for instance, they said I was waiting behind the multicolored curtain, and one of the fellas back there says, well, this must be like old hat to you. You know, because I've been about 4 times on the show, and old hat. I was, you know, it was just like an opening night.
Even the most celebrated classical stage actors frequently struggled with the unique technical demands of microphone work.
Yeah, a lot of people can't read. You know, reading on radio is another talent.
It is.
Some people can ad-lib and some people can't. And some people can read a script and make it sound like they're making it up. And other people take a long time. Larry Olivier, for example, is a terrible radio actor.
But on stage, then?
Well, he needs his 3 or 4 days. His first readings are very mysterious. You think that's Sir Lawrence, is it, you know?
Unintentional comedy often happened when elite stage legends were mistaken for common daytime television performers.
That's unusual.
Yes, you see. And I had him on the radio several times. And the first time we had an old radio actor called Ray Collins who came up to him, said, didn't I see you on Big Sister? That was a soap opera, you know. And he came up to me later, Collins, and says, this poor fellow doesn't know what he's doing. Maybe we better help him out a little.
Laurence Olivier.
Yes, that's right. Because he was nervous about reading the words off the page, which is a special thing.
He strongly believed that early broadcasting forced audiences to engage their imaginations in deeply profound ways.
I don't think there's any medium better because it, first of all, it did what television doesn't do. it made people listen and pay attention, because as we are talking, the great majority of our public may well be wandering about the room or up to something else. But on radio, they couldn't follow it at all unless they were really following it.
The lack of visual imagery on radio allowed listeners to create far more terrifying monsters in their minds.
That's true, and the imagination really had to take over. And that's why a lot of things on television they could never do as well. For example, I don't think on a television show they could do a really horror or mystery type of thing as well.
No, because your own imagination would do it.
Because they can't create those special effects that's in the mind all the time when you hear it.
Oh, yes.
Those were great days.
Even the most legendary Hollywood figures relied on tiny, charming personal rituals to find their inner confidence.
No magic tonight?
So no magic tonight, and I also told myself that I would do what Mrs. Temple used to tell Shirley before every take, and I find I'm not doing it. Do you know what she used to say?
No.
This is really true. Just as they put that slate on, you know, take number 4, whatever it is, Littlest Rebel. She'd say, "Sparkle, Shirley." Sparkle, Shirley. So that's what I told myself behind the curtain.
Beating dense city traffic to make live broadcasts often required some highly creative and outrageous transport solutions.
Yes, and I found out that you can hire an ambulance in New York without being sick.
I didn't know that.
So I used to go from CBS to NBC and back again in an ambulance so I could get through the traffic in order to get from one soap opera to another, you know? And I wouldn't know what I was going to play. They'd hold an elevator open for me. I'd come in. They'd say, Studio 3. I'd go into Studio 3. They'd hand me a piece of paper. I'd say, "What is it?" And they'd say, "70-year-old Chinaman." And we're on the air. I didn't know how it turned out, what happened, anything. I was a 70-year-old Chinaman.
Just go right in.
We're talking about first readings. That's...
Early live educational broadcasts occasionally slipped into highly inappropriate and completely accidental double meanings.
And one morning, it was about the Olympic Games in Greece. And the lady authoress, an unmarried woman in her late 60s, was sitting in this tiny studio with an organ and the rest of little cast of 6, and we picked up the script, pretty badly hungover, I may say, and went on the air live with dialogue that went like this. "Ah, Pythias, you have the biggest lance in all Athens. Can you throw it over your shoulder? Let me see your discus, you know."
A single, tiny mispronunciation during a live broadcast could permanently end an actor's promising radio career.
Dirty. And when we finally came to a line where I had to say, "barrels and barrels of pith."
Organ music up and out.
Organ music, and I never worked for School of the Air again, nor did Joe Cotton. We starved for a month.
Off the School of the Air.
We were written out.
Behind the scenes of early radio, colleagues frequently pulled the most outrageous and undignified practical jokes.
They undressed Bill Stern once, you know that?
Oh,
story?
yes, I was there.
Well, Bill Stern was one of the great sportscasters of all times, and he was at NBC, I think, at the time. And somebody went out to a studio tour, and while he's on the mic, they removed his trousers.
Oh, yes.
Now, there's nothing he can do. He is on the air.
That was Frank Reddick.
They're pulling his trousers down, and he's saying, in the meantime, the score on the Browns.
Right.
They pulled his trousers off. Now they go out into the hall, and there's a studio tour, and say, "By the way, you better drop by 8H. Stern's doing the sports." And all these people walk by the window where he was sitting there in his shorts doing the thing. Wonderful things like that.
Psyching out serious commercial announcers on live air was a highly popular sport among mischievous radiocasts.
In which Campbell Soup was advertising for old roosters. Now, as a matter of fact, roosters make the best soup, and very old chickens, but we didn't know that. We thought it was funny. So I had my cast every week in dress rehearsal. While Chappell was saying, "You like Campbell's chicken soup," we were saying rooster soup right along with him. And he would say, "Now, fellows, you know I'm going to go on the air and I'm going to say rooster."
Comedy legends of the past possessed a cruel but brilliant talent for completely breaking each other's concentration.
So George used to say to Jack Benny, 3 days before the party, he'd say, "Jack, when Jeanette MacDonald gets up to sing at the party, don't laugh. It would be very embarrassing." He'd call him the next day. Jack, you know, somebody's going to ask Jeanette to sing. I would be very embarrassed if you laughed. Wow, she... Sure enough, so they're at the party and somebody says, Jeanette, would you sing a song? And Jack goes right out. It was all over. He was physically unable not to explode with laughter.
This extraordinary 1976 meeting remains a beautiful tribute to the deep respect and timeless wit they shared. 2. Sheer ignorance, the shocking reason why Citizen Kane became a masterpiece. It is unfortunate we cannot see Orson Welles and Johnny Carson together more often on television. Now, let's see how he thought about his greatest film ever.
There was indeed a very definite effort to stop the film during shooting by those elements in the studio who were attempting to seize power, because in those days, studio politics, particularly RKO and indeed many of the big studios in Hollywood, were very much like Central American republics. And there were revolutions and counter-revolutions and every sort of palace intrigue, and there was a big effort.
Well, I don't think I'm going to sparkle tonight, Frank. But I have my stick, and if you try one of those in-depth interviews, you ought to know that I'm armed.
Welles possessed a famously sharp perspective on the bizarre personalities dominating the global political stage.
Politicians.
I don't think politicians are natural crooks.
Not all of them.
No, I don't think most of them are. I think they are actors. And actors are neither men nor women. Actors belong to a third sex. Actors are actors, and one aspect of it is the political game.
Continuous official scrutiny from federal agencies never stopped this outspoken creator from stating his mind.
You mean me?
You.
Yeah. But I've been investigated over and over again by the Americans, by all kinds of American committees and
Really?
FBI and everybody. Sure. It's one of our favorite indoor and outdoor sports. What else were we doing in the doctor's office during Ellsberg's trial, but investigated?
The legendary filmmaker used incredibly clever verbal traps to completely freeze his aggressive political interrogators.
And dumb, and they fell into a marvelous trap because they said to me, are you a card-carrying communist? Of course, I've never been even faintly pro-communist, but I am on the progressive side, as I imagine you've guessed. But I said, will you define what a communist is? And this is when they fell in the trap. They said, what do you mean? I said, well, just, I want to answer your question honestly. How can I answer your question if you don't tell me what you mean? Well, what's communist? Yeah. Well, I guess it's where whatever you make goes to the government. I said, well, I'm 86% communist. The rest is capitalist. That's the income tax.
Welles frequently transformed invasive corporate surveillance into highly entertaining personal radio shows to mock executive power.
Have you ever been bugged?
Oh, yes, but that was by Harry Cohen. That was by the head of a movie studio.
I see.
In my office. And he had me bugged in such an obvious way that I used to come in. I had a radio program every week in those days. And I used to come into my office in the morning. I'd say, good morning, everyone. This is Orson Welles' office, welcoming you to another day of fun and laughter and so on. And then when the day would end, this is Orson Welles signing off. We'd play a little music and so on. And treated it like a radio show. And Harry Cohen got rather angry about that because he thought he...
Even historic playwrights were occasionally accused of ridiculous political crimes during intense periods of censorship.
And as a result of one of those operations, I put on Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, and a congressman got up on the floor and said it is a known fact that Orson Welles is producing and acting in a play by the notorious communist Christopher Marlowe.
The legendary director developed a deeply complicated and highly ambivalent relationship with his own beloved country.
Nationalistically inclined, because I hate that in anybody. I do truly believe that patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel.
Yes.
And I don't feel that way, but I'm very happy in America. But it happens that America is not as happy with me as I am with it.
His profound passion for traditional foreign arts often struggled with the commercialization of modern entertainment.
Well, two things. First of all, bullfighting, as somebody once said very well, is indefensible and irresistible. And it is irresistible when everything is as it ought to be, both with the beast, the sacrificial beast, and with the brave man who meets that brave animal for a ritualistic encounter. I'm not going to go into all that mystique, which has been pretty worn out by now. The fact is that it has become an industry which depends on its existence with the tourist trade. So it's become folkloric.
Developing a strong moral conscience eventually forced the filmmaker to abandon some lifelong personal hobbies.
But I've turned against it for very much the same reason that my father, who was a great hunter, suddenly stopped hunting. He said, "I've killed enough animals and I'm ashamed of myself." And I was a bad tororito, you know, for a while myself, and I've seen too many hundreds of bullfights, thousands of them, I suppose, and wasted a lot of my life now that I look back on it. And although it's been a great education to me in human terms and in many other ways.
Welles' explosive, physical encounter with another legendary artistic giant ultimately led to an enduring friendship.
He had written the commentary. This is many years ago. And we hadn't seen each other. This is a dark projection room, and I was reading the text. And I said, "Is it really necessary to say this? Do you think wouldn't it be better to just see the picture?" And things like that. And then I heard this growl from the darkness, you know. Some damn faggot who runs an art theater trying to tell me how to write narration and so on. So I began to camp it up. I thought, if that's what I'm dealing with, I said, "Oh, Mr. Hemingway, you think because you're so big and strong and have hair on your chest that you try to bully me," you see. So this great figure stood up and swung at me. So I swung at him. Now you have the picture of the Spanish Civil War being projected on a screen, and these two heavy figures swinging away at each other and missing most of the time.
This cinematic giant always treasured the private, riotous humor of his highly disciplined intellectual peers.
I was enormously fond of him as a man, too, because the thing you never get from his books was his humor.
Yes.
There's hardly a word of humor in a Hemingway book, because he's so tense and solemn and dedicated to what is true and good and all that. But when he relaxed, he was riotously funny. And that was the level that I loved about him. And I enjoyed being with him.
Humility remained a core trait, as he constantly resisted being grouped with the century's geniuses.
If I asked them that question, they would say that you were their hero.
I can't imagine why, but I love hearing it.
You love hearing
I
that, do you?
sincerely don't know why. I sincerely can't see how anybody could make a hero of me. But
as I've never yet been called it, I must ask you this, and you've been called it many times. You've been called a genius many times.
yes, it's just one of those words, you know. It's one of those words. I suppose there have only been 2 or 3 geniuses in a century. We all know who they are, you know.
Really?
I suppose, yes. What, Einstein and Picasso and somebody in China we haven't heard about, you know.
So you don't accept the...
I accept anything I get. but between friends, you know, there aren't many of them.
No.
And I really wouldn't want to try to edge my way into an elevator that for geniuses only, going up.
This legendary director carried highly painful memories of early career criticisms throughout his entire life.
Did they ever wound you?
Deeply, yes. I can remember every bad notice I've ever had.
Really?
I can remember one I got when I was 18 years old in Salt Lake City, when I played Marshbanks with Catherine Cornell, and I was described as a sea calf whining in a basso profundo. And I'm sure it's an absolutely accurate description of that performance, which must have been abominable. But it still goes through my head before I go to sleep at night, along with 1,000 other litanies of the same kind.
Welles strongly believed that rewatching old work was a highly painful and completely futile exercise.
See one of their pictures again, you know. And I can't think of anything more horrifying, you know, because you can't change it.
Yes.
What can you do about it?
Yes.
There it is,
Yes.
forever. And if you're, you know, if you're a writer and you've written a bad chapter and they're going to bring out another edition, if you're lucky enough of your works, you get to fix up that chapter. Nothing you can do about a movie. There it is, locked in forever.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
The celebrated master remained completely fascinated by the inexplicable photographic magic of early cinematic icons.
And of course, it's a great mystery. I don't know if you've ever seen those commercials she did.
No.
When I went to Stockholm years ago, they showed me in their film institute there 2 commercials for bread that she made to be shown in movie theaters. And there was this great galumphing Swedish cow having a picnic. There was nothing to show you that you were looking at the most divine creature would ever be on the screen. And 2 years later, she was Greta Garbo.
4. The Black Coffee Escape, The Hilarious Day. Orson Welles stranded Oliver Reed. Orson Welles seemed stern and demanding, but this legendary director definitely knew how to have fun.
Oliver, you look smashing. You were very worried the last time you were here that you had put on weight, and now look at you.
I put on even more.
You have not. You're down. You're down.
I've been eating hamburgers over here.
A new taste thrill?
Well, it is. We don't have hamburgers in Europe.
Welles frequently shared wild behind-the-scenes stories about the highly unpredictable nature of international film productions.
Yes.
We were together in Athens not long ago to make a film. We spent 10 days waiting for the producer to turn up. He didn't come or pay the hotel bill, and we had to sneak out of out of Greece under assumed names. And I wonder if you ever got paid.
Orson, just in case your lawyers
Because
are listening.
I didn't.
I got paid.
I thought so.
Yes. But then I had a special contract.
This celebrated culinary lover always enjoyed engaging in highly entertaining debates about basic everyday comforts.
But other than that,
Why would her parents be embarrassed?
Hamburgers. Orson is a great gourmet. But if anybody in Europe, they have Foster's Hollywood in Madrid, do they not?
They have Wimpies in the in the Champs-Élysées.
No, but the hamburgers here are superb, but not the posh ones in the posh hotels. You go to there and the buns fall to pieces, and they fall on your trousers, and they get up and they think you've
Had a problem.
had a problem.
Yes.
But the ones that don't want to advertise, but the ones that you can put all the relish on and all the gunk, they're the things that we don't have in Europe, and that's what I've been eating.
But why don't you take a franchise back?
They've already...
Oliver's Hamburgers.
No, they've
Huh?
already got them over there. And besides that, I can't cook that well.
And what about cheeseburger? You haven't even mentioned a cheeseburger. That's
But I mean everything on it.
Oh, I know. And you love them?
This is an intellectual conversation.
No,
isn't
no,
it?
no, but-
I thought I was coming on with Orson.
Raise the level of...
Welles' legendary financial struggles often led to highly amusing and dramatic accusations from his close colleagues.
But I've never stranded any actors.
You've stranded me in several Greek restaurants. Come on, what about that time I said, but Orson, all the drivers and the taxi drivers want to get paid. And you said, dear boy, ignore them. And then, and we went out to
Orson,
we went out to the restaurant, and Orson had the most amazing looking lady with him. And I know this to be true.
The brilliant filmmaker possessed a wonderfully sharp wit that easily turned any playful criticism into laughter.
Because we were there for 10 days on your own admission, and for 10 days he invited me out for either for luncheon or for dinner. And he would order coffee. And at the end of, when he said, black coffee, my dear. And imagine this, you're all sitting at the table. And then the... And the waiter comes in with the bill, as Orson eats well, and he says, Orson's gone.
What makes this story?
Your
so
reputation.
What makes this story so peculiarly pointless?
Welles loved passing down incredibly simple, yet deeply profound wisdom to the younger generation of actors.
I knew nothing about acting. I still know nothing about acting. I came up to Orson. I said, Orson, I would like to thank you, sir. I was very submissive in those days. I said, Orson, I would like to thank you for teaching me how to underplay things. I had no confidence about how to play things down. And he said, dear boy, if in doubt, do nothing.
I love it. But isn't that the greatest lesson you can learn in acting?
The majestic director always reacted with genuine theatrical astonishment whenever his friends revealed unexpected family secrets.
Well, now, what have we been doing on this show all these times? You don't
Not
toot
only
your
that,
horn,
but
as
he's
they
the
say.
direct descendant of Peter the Great of Russia.
Good. God, could I kiss your ring?
No joke. He really is.
I didn't know he was so
Yes.
sloopy-doopy. I'm surprised. What a chuck.
Welles remained completely fascinated by the grand, historical eccentricities of famous rulers from the past.
And so he came to Holland in order to build ships. He also went to Deptford, where he lived in John Evelyn's house, destroyed it, got his gardeners to ride him in wheelbarrows through holly hedges. And he used to dress himself up as an ordinary carpenter and demanded to be known as Peter the Carpenter. And all the real carpenters of his group who went over to learn to build the ships, he would dress them up as aristocrats.
The legendary storyteller deeply appreciated the highly dramatic and public struggles of iconic historical figures.
Got the hang of what he was doing, but suddenly 20 buckos walking down the street and 9 carpenters that all the buckos were cowing down to was quite an extravagant sight in the streets of London. And so they started to throw their plum pips at him and their cherry pips at him. So he sent a messenger to the king at the time and insisted that if he was going to be disguised as a carpenter on the streets of London, at least he should be paid the courtesy of not having the populace throw cherry stones at him.
Welles possessed a brilliantly dark sense of humor when discussing the brutal realities of classic history.
For instance, when he rushed home back to Russia again because the Musketeers had formulated a society that got his sister, who he had sent to a nunnery and incarcerated in a castle, and said, we want you to be leader. He got wind of this and rushed back with his emissaries. And he took out a sword and an axe, and he executed himself 230 people on the main street. He also took the Musketeers and tied to their hands this epistle and hanged them by their ankles in front of her windows until they rotted. Now, there's the prankster, there's the joker.
The clever master frequently admitted to playing playful mental games just to challenge his talk show hosts.
And I think Orson, I was watching him in the green room, was talking about the only acting being the theater. I don't necessarily believe that.
I don't either, but I thought it'd be nice to put Merv down.
Yes, well, I don't believe that. I believe, as with Glenda...
It's the same thing in any medium.
Yes, I didn't realize that your voice was theatrical and you could shout me down. And I would like to stand up and talk about film actors. I have never been more excited.
Welles never hesitated to offer incredibly generous and deeply analytical praise to his talented co-stars.
And that's all I can say.
I wonder, Orson, if you would say a few words about the acting of Oliver Reed.
Oh, with great pleasure. He confounds one because of his passionate partisanship for the films, but he's really one of those actors who would work in any medium because he displaces air.
Being both highly eccentric and deeply sociable, Welles remains one of cinema's most unforgettable directors. 5. The 10-minute monologue that shook television, Orson Welles' greatest vocal masterclass.
I asked you to read something for us, and I know that's hard
This is a cue, in
turn
other words.
in, but would you
Yeah,
do
you
a
really
little
did.
something and just...
I thought for a while that maybe there'd been enough Shakespeare inflicted on talk shows. And every once in a while, when I'm doing a movie, I play a part where the director says, would you write yourself a speech?
This classic meeting between Dick Cavett and Orson Welles beautifully highlights the director's sharp, playful wit.
Just that part, not the movie. Yeah. And I've been making a picture. I can't give the name of it, not because it's a secret, but because they change the title every day. And I've been making it with Tuesday Weld, And it's happens out in Central Park, and I think it's going to be quite an exciting event. And I play an old Jewish professional chess player. Well, I don't know why he's a professional chess player or why the young girl, who is also a very little girl, it's a fantasy, gets to be a friend.
Welles' legendary storytelling ability shines even when describing his most bizarre and highly mysterious film roles.
Of his, because they wouldn't let me read the rest of the script. I don't quite know why, but part of their diabolic plan was for me to write my stuff, and there has to be a Noah's Ark toy brought up during the course. This sounds really crazy, and I'm losing you, but I've got to say all this so you know how it happens. And they said, well, write a thing about Noah's Ark, and this is what I did. And it's about the Noah's Ark story. And it's partly what the old man says himself and partly from the Bible as he quotes from it. And I hope that none of our listeners of any faith will be offended at the reminder that the story of the flood is, after all, a Jewish story.
The brilliant director possessed a highly unique talent for turning chaotic scripts into deeply profound literature.
God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. For all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great, and the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast.
Hearing this majestic voice perform classical literature instantly reminds audiences of his incredible, unmatched theatrical power.
After he'd fixed it for a big flood to wash everything away, he began to feel a little sorry. It says so right there in the Bible. God changed his mind. He remembered somebody that he loved. He remembered Noah. Who was Noah? All we know from the Bible is that he was very old and liked to get very drunk.
Welles never hesitated to inject highly irreverent and realistic humor into the most sacred historical texts.
And put into it every living thing of all flesh, two of every sort, male and female, to keep them alive with you. And old Noah did as God told him. He built the boat, the ark, and all the fountains of the great deep were all broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And Noah went in with his family into the ark, and the beasts of the earth, and the birds of the sky, and every living thing that creepeth upon the earth went in 2 by 2 unto Noah into the ark, male and female, as God had commanded. And that way, after all.
His breathtaking vocal control and dramatic timing effortlessly recreated the terrifying power of the ancient world.
As I have done. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. So everybody went ashore and started to do their thing all over again. Once again, including old Cap Noah got himself stinking drunk to celebrate. It's right here in the Bible.
Welles' brilliant understanding of human nature allowed him to see the comedic vulnerability behind legendary heroes.
And blow us all up or wash the whole world away into darkness. There in the sky will be his rainbow, like a string on God's finger, to remind him. From now on, he's left the whole thing in our hands, the earth, and all that grows on it, and everything that lives on it, in our hands. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night,
shall not cease. Only we.
6. Orson Welles' savage third man confession before passing. Everyone must face their decline. Here is Orson Welles' final interview, offering his unique perspective on world cinema.
To consolidate his reputation as one of the giants of cinema, here's a reminder of the film which for many remains his greatest achievement.
Galleons of Spain off Jersey coast. Is that really your idea of how to run a newspaper?
I don't know how to run a newspaper, Mr. Thatcher. I just try everything I can think of.
Charge, you know perfectly well there's not the slightest proof that this armada's off the Jersey
Hello,
coast.
Mr. Bernstein.
Excuse me, Mr.
Can you
Kane.
prove it isn't?
This just
Mr.
came in.
Bernstein, I'd like you to meet Mr. Thatcher.
I'll just
How do you do,
forward
Mr. Thatcher?
Leland,
Hello.
Mr. Thatcher, my ex-guardian.
From
We have
Cuba.
no secrets from our readers, Mr. Bernstein. Mr. Thatcher is one of our most devoted readers.
This legendary creator loved playing playful card tricks to completely captivate his loyal television audiences.
He hated talking about any of his movies, but he loved talking. And there was much to say. He was and is a remarkable figure in 20th century culture. He revolutionized American theater. He terrified the nation with his War of the Worlds broadcast. He made cinema history. He was a political animal, a friend of President Roosevelt, a speechwriter and commentator. He married Rita Hayworth, had an affair with Judy Garland, and a deep and close relationship with Marlene Dietrich. He was an accomplished magician, a mind reader, and a bullfighter. He was, as a friend once described him, a multitude of a man. He was also, I think, the most fascinating talker of them all. What you're going to see now are the highlights of an interview I did with him in 1974. It was the time of Watergate, and I've been asking him his views on the stature of politicians.
I don't think politicians are natural crooks.
Not all of them.
No, I don't think most of them are. I think they are active.
He maintained a highly fascinating interest in the mysterious parapsychology behind professional gambling and luck.
As long as it refers to and reflects and exalts the essential, commonly held ideals of a culture. Those performances are part of our culture, even though they are performances, even though some of the actors themselves may be cynical about their performance. But what we have now...
Achieving a truly jaw-dropping performance often required the collective energy and belief of everyone present.
I'm neither very hot about nationalistically inclined, because I hate that in anybody. I do truly believe that patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel.
Yes.
And I don't feel that way, but I'm very happy in America. But it happens that America is not as happy with me as I am with it. You know?
Yeah. Why do you in fact live in Spain at present?
I don't live in Spain. I'm shooting a picture there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
But you spend a lot of time there, don't you?
Not as much now as I did before. I was there again because, like the fruit pickers, I go where the work is, you know. No, I don't live in Spain at all. I don't have an establishment there.
No.
Behind his majestic screen roles sat a delightfully mischievous man who loved extending pleasant social evenings.
Years in bullfighting.
Yes, but I'm less. I'm interested in what I remember.
You don't?
I don't like it much anymore.
Why's that?
Well, two things. First of all, bullfighting, as somebody once said very well, is indefensible and irresistible. And it is irresistible when everything is as it ought to be, both with the beast, the sacrificial beast, and with the brave.
Even in his older years, the famous director possessed a wonderfully healthy and realistic perspective on aging.
The fact is that it has become an industry which depends on its existence with the tourist trade. So it's become folkloric. And I hate anything which is folkloric, you know. But I haven't turned against bullfighting because...
The veteran filmmaker harbored a deeply unsentimental and humorous outlook on the physical decay of old age.
I begin to think that I've seen enough of those animals die.
Was it a waste? It's odd you should say that when you look back. I would have thought it was a very exciting...
It was all of that, but wasn't I living second-hand through the lives of those toreros who were my friends?
Yes.
Wasn't I living and dying second-hand? Wasn't there something finally voyeuristic about it? I suspect my afición.
Welles fiercely guarded his past and initially refused to support any attempts to document his historic life.
But what have I extracted from it that's of any value to anybody?
What were the qualities in them, though, that you admired, that attracted you to them?
Well, of course, you know, there are two kinds of people who follow the bulls, as they say in Spanish. There are those people who follow because they love the bullfighters, and there is a very small minority who are interested in the bulls. And I was always most interested in the bulls. Now, that will be incomprehensible to an English audience that somebody could...
For this brilliant artist, fleeting moments of profound joy were far more valuable than simple daily happiness.
Millions of other people, but one other very famous American, Hemingway.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him?
He was a very close friend of mine.
Was he?
Yeah. I knew him on and off for many years. We had a very strange relationship. He was... I never belonged to his clan because I made fun of him. And nobody ever made fun of Hemingway.
Yeah.
But I did. And he took it, but he didn't like me to do it in front of the club.
His deepest, most painful personal struggles usually originated from a heavy conscience and deep moral regrets.
We met in a projection of a movie which he had made and which he wanted me to narrate. And he had written the commentary. This is many years ago.
Yeah.
And we hadn't seen each other. This is a dark projection room, and I was reading the text. And I said, is it really necessary to say this? Do you think wouldn't it be better to just see the picture? And things like that. And then I heard this growl from the darkness, you know.
Welles remained a deeply protective companion, always defending his famous wives from painful, public misunderstandings.
And these two heavy figures swinging away at each other and missing most of the time. The lights came up and we looked at each other and burst into laughter and became great friends. Not a friendship that was renewed every year, but over many years at different times.
Yes.
And I saw him in the last year in which he was still entirely in control of himself, again, quite a lot. But we never discussed bullfighting because we, except on the subject of Ordóñez, we disagreed profoundly on too many points. And he thought he invented it, you know.
Yes.
He really did think he invented it.
Yes. He, of course,
maybe he did.
His book, of course, is still
superb.
a magnificent.
And it's a superb book. He's a great, great, great artist.
His legendary romance with a beautiful Hollywood icon began with a single, striking magazine photograph.
You never get from his books was his humor.
Yes.
There's hardly a word of humor in a Hemingway book because he's so tense and solemn and dedicated to what is true and good and all that. But when he relaxed, he was riotously funny. And that was the level that I loved about him. And I enjoyed being with him. I used to go out and keep him company when he went duck shooting in Venice in the autumns. I have many strange memories of him like that. And I was enormously fond of it. But as an artist, I think that it's really... there are very few important writers, with the exception of Novikov, who have not been influenced to some degree by him. I think it's impossible to write the same as we did before he wrote.
And yet, do you not sense now that he's become, over the past 10 years, an old-fashioned sort of figure?
He's come back again, I think.
Yeah.
My hunch is, I don't know in England, of course, because these things vary in different countries. In America, he was in total eclipse for the last 10 years.
The dark, sarcastic humor of old Hollywood directors often turned somber industry events into legendary jokes.
He's been dead long enough. I think it's mainly true, isn't it, that writers do go into total eclipse right after their death.
Yes.
I wonder why that is, but it seems to be true.
He was ultimately, of course, a tragic figure, wasn't he? I mean, in that his end was complete counterpoint to all that he'd stood for and written about.
He was sick, but he did talk about it.
Welles treasured the absolute devotion and eccentric kindness of the colorful, real-life characters surrounding his career.
Or as remarkable, or as space displacing, or whatever, however you want to describe a star.
Yeah.
But the world doesn't think being a movie star is the everlasting end.
No.
And it used to, and that's why they don't exist.
That's right. I was going to ask you, in effect, it brought us right back to the beginning of our conversation. Were they, in fact, just great stars, or were they just part of an illusion?
They were great. They were great. I think that Keaton and Garbo, my goodness, Cagney. I won't talk about Bogart because everybody does. I loved him very much, but I think we can get along without talking about Bogart for about 3 years, and his shade will be relieved.
Yes.
But Cagney, in my view, was maybe the greatest actor who ever appeared in front of the camera.
Really?
Yes.
James Cagney.
This celebrated auteur possessed a brilliant, historic talent for writing some of cinema's most unforgettable dialogue.
In behalf of some project of mine, and it was clear that there wasn't any copy being given to a group of hardworking journalists. And having been a journalist myself, I thought I'd invent something.
Oh, I see.
It's sheer fakery.
Sheer fakery. I wonder if he knows. Yeah. But why, in fact, do you have such a schedule? Why do you keep working so hard? There's an awful compulsion, it seems to me, in you to work all the time.
Oh, no.
No?
Oh, no, I think you've put your finger on a basic failing of all lazy people. They have to work too hard or they won't do anything at all.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Once I stretch out in a hammock, you'll never hear from me again. You know, as I like it that way.
Could I take you as that is your last line tonight, or is there, could I ask you?
Shortly after this final interview, on October 10th, 1985, Orson Welles passed away at age 70. 7. The night Johnny Carson publicly demanded a refund from Orson Welles. And to conclude the video, let's listen to the tribute that Johnny Carson paid to his highly unusual guest.
Frank mentioned that he first met Orson Welles in the year 1944. I met Orson Welles in the year 1943. Now, I realize that most of the entertainers who come up here tonight are going to pay great homage to Mr. Welles and extend gratitude to him as how he has affected their lives. I am here actually to collect the $50 that I think Orson Welles owe me.
Even during a prestigious tribute, this legendary host immediately found a highly entertaining way to demand a payback.
32 years ago, when I was 17 years old, I hitchhiked from Nebraska to California. I had entered the Naval Air Corps, and yet I was not to go into the service until October of that year. So I came out to Hollywood, and I realized very quickly that the servicemen were treated quite well. So, possessing all the knowledge of a 17-year-old boy, I went to a military supply clothing store on Hollywood Boulevard.
His youthful and mischievous adventures eventually led him straight to a fateful meeting with a legendary theatrical magician.
Where I bought myself some khaki pants, a khaki shirt, a khaki tie, an overseas hat, and headed to the USO. Absolutely true. I went to the Hollywood Canteen, went to the Palladium, and then I saw that Mr. Orson Welles was performing his magic show for servicemen on Coenga Boulevard in a tent. And being an amateur magician, that seemed the place to go. So I was there for 3 nights in a row, and finally on the 3rd night, Mr. Welles asked for volunteers to assist him in sawing someone in half.
The dramatic climax of his short-lived magic career quickly turned into a very real and highly unexpected legal disaster.
I volunteered, went up on the stage, and was sawed in half by Mr. Orson Welles. Now, the sad part about this story is that immediately afterwards I was arrested by the Shore Patrol because I had no papers. I was held in detention for 2 hours. I had to post a $50 bond for impersonating a serviceman.
Decades later, the famous personal debt was finally settled in the most public and heartwarming way possible.
So I really came here tonight to collect that $50. But in lieu of that, and publicly telling this story for the first time, I thought this would be a nice place to forgive the debt in lieu of spending a few moments on a stage with Mr. Orson Welles.
Johnny Carson's hilarious tribute perfectly captured the unmatched charm and enduring magic of Orson Welles. Their historic bond remains a beautiful highlight of television history. Which of Orson Welles' legendary talk show stories did you enjoy the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more classic retrospectives.